Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to make a delicious and refreshing shrimp ceviche estilo Agua, Chile. This is one of my favorite ceviche recipes, so without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so the star of the show of course is going to be shrimp. Here we have about 4 pounds of shrimp, and we already went ahead and removed the shell as well as the vein. Now you guys do not need to remove the vein, it's totally personal preference. Some people really don't like it, I don't mind it. But for the purpose of this video, we went ahead and removed it. Alright, now on to the fruits and veggies. So we ended up using 4 Roma tomatoes, even though here we only have 3. And that's the beautiful thing about this dish as well, is you can always add more or less depending on your liking. Next up are going to be the serrano peppers. We ended up using 3. We didn't want to make it too spicy, so if you want to make it spicier, you can always add more. Then we have our purple onions. We used 2 of those. And then we have our parsley. So parsley or cilantro, I think they're the same thing, but if they're not, it's cilantro. So you're going to use a whole bunch of that, or a bunch of that, if that makes sense. Alright, next up are going to be limes. These are going to be absolutely essential to the dish, since the shrimp is going to be cooking in the lime juice. Now, pro tip for picking limes is you want to choose the ones that are fairly squishy and soft. Those tend to be the juiciest, and the harder ones tend to be dry, at least from personal experience. Now, I forgot to count how many limes, but you want a lot of those, maybe like 20 or 15. Alright, next up are going to be cucumbers. We used 3 large cucumbers, and we usually dice them, but today we just felt like doing thin slices, and we'll show you what machine we used, or what tool. It's this little slicing machine, and you just kind of push forward and backward, and it creates these slices. But if you don't have this, feel free to just dice them up. And our next ingredient is going to be imitation crab. We used about half a packet or 1 pound. So when you go to the store, they usually have those large packets, and we just went ahead and used half of that. Next up is going to be our tomato and shrimp cocktail juice. It doesn't have to be this exact flavor or brand, but you do want some kind of clamato or tomato and shrimp cocktail juice for this recipe. Alright, so now that we've gone over the ingredients, the next thing we're doing here is chopping up the shrimp into smaller chunks, because the smaller the chunks, the sooner the shrimp can cook in the lime juice. Usually when you have large chunks, it takes a while, and we were really hungry, so we just went ahead and started chopping up the shrimp. So as you can see here, they're a lot smaller pieces. You can make them even smaller, but we felt like this was good enough. Alright, next up is going to be preparing the lime juice. Because it does take some time for the shrimp to cook or marinate in the lime juice, we want to do this first. That way, as we're doing the other steps in the recipe, the shrimp is cooking in the lime juice. Because depending on the size shrimp, it may take 1 to 2 hours for them to cook. So you want to make sure that you do this as soon as possible, and that the shrimp are completely submerged. And this is why you may want to have a couple of extra limes hanging around in case you need them. Alright, next up is going to be adding salt and pepper to the shrimp. I forgot to mention these ingredients earlier in the video, but most people have salt and pepper, so it shouldn't be a problem. And you want to add this to your liking, so however much you want. Then you want to give it a quick mix, and as you're working on the recipe, continue to mix the shrimp. That way the entirety of the shrimp is cooked throughout the lime juice. Here I'm tasting it for salt, and it needs more salt, so if it needs more salt and pepper, guys, feel free to add some more. Alright, next up is going to be piecing apart our imitation crab. This we usually do with our hand, but if you want to use a knife and chop it up, you can do that as well. This is how the end product is going to look like if you use your hand. If you use a knife, it doesn't look like this, not a big deal. Alright, next up we're going to be working on our tomatoes and onions. We like using this little tool here to cut them up because it's easier than a knife, and it cuts them up very, very nicely. So when we use this, we cut the onion into fourths, as you can see there. When you use a half an onion, it doesn't really work, and you have to use a good amount of force, as you can see there. Alright, and for the final product, you can see here that it does a fantastic job of cutting those up. So if you guys don't have one of these, highly recommend getting one. Alright, now on to the tomatoes. We're doing the same thing, cutting them into fourths, putting them in a little machine, and letting it do its thing. Once you have that ready, you want to add your onions and tomatoes to a separate bowl, and setting it off to the side. Alright, now we're going to make our base salsa for the ceviche. We're going to have about 3 to 4 limes, 2 garlic cloves, the 3 serrano peppers that we mentioned earlier, and the bunch of cilantro. Then you want to throw that into the blender, and if it's not blending, feel free to add more lime juice or a little bit of water, and that should get the job done. Alright, so now that we finished blending it, this is how it should look like, and you want to shoot for this type of consistency. You don't want to make it too chunky, because then you won't really be getting all the flavors. So try to go for this consistency here. Alright, now we're going to check up on the shrimp. It's been about an hour and a half, and as you can see, the lime juice has been cooking the shrimp. It's no longer transparent, and it's red. So, looks pretty good to us. So now let's go ahead and get started mixing all the ingredients together. So we're going to start by getting a bowl and placing the onion and tomato in there. As you can see, we didn't add everything. That's just because we wanted to use this bowl, and the bowl wasn't going to fit everything, so we use half. Next, you're going to put in your cucumbers, and then we're going to add our imitation crab. As you guys can see, it already looks super good. And if you guys ate it just like this, it would still taste phenomenal. Alright, now we're going to be adding the life of the party, and that's going to be our green Agua Chile style salsa. This is going to take your ceviche game to the next level. It's really the star of this recipe. Alright, now we're going to be adding our shrimp, and as you can see, we are still including the lime juice. So don't toss out or throw away the lime juice. Make sure to include that in the recipe because it has a lot of flavor from the shrimp and also that salt and pepper that we added. Alright, and the last thing is going to be our shrimp and cocktail juice. We ended up using about 30 to 40% of the bottle. If you guys want to add more, add more. If you guys want to add less, you can do that as well. For example, if it's too spicy, feel free to add a little bit more of the tomato and shrimp cocktail juice. Now we're giving it a little mix, and that's going to be your shrimp ceviche Agua Chile style. Alright, now for the preparation, you're going to grab your tostadas. You can grab any kind of tostada. It doesn't matter what brand you get. They had these at the store, so we got those. And my personal favorites are these blue corn tortilla chips because it's easier to scoop the ceviche. And the tostadas usually end up breaking. That's why I don't really like using them. Another essential is going to be your avocado. So just cut that right down the middle, slide it open, and set that out to the side. Then we're going to start scooping our ceviche onto our tostada. And fun fact for you guys, as I'm preparing the ceviche or this tostada here, is I love avocados. I eat about 4 or 5 of these a day. Whether or not that's healthy, I don't know, but just a little fun tip for you guys. So we're going to slice those up. I do a little spin technique there, scoop it out, and then you want to place that onto your tostada. You don't have to be that extra, but for the purpose of this video, and it being a new social media digital aid, I was like, hey, let's just be extra. And here's our final product. As you can see, it looks amazing, and it was amazing. I had about 5 or 6 of these that day, so believe me, this is a fantastic recipe. And that's pretty much it for today's videos. Thanks again for watching. Let me know what you guys think below, and also let me know what kind of videos you guys would like to see next. Be great.